What's up, Raptorians? It's new blood tonight. Your host, Adon Moss, and Kyle Brickman. What's up, Kyle?
How are you? It's not that new. The blood isn't that new.
I'm still fresh blood, man. This is my first year. I'm gonna use that as a qualifier in case anybody judges me for anything I say for the next year. And you should indulge in the same.
Yeah. I mean, the show's been around for 2 years. So
True. Raptors were at home finally against the Boston Celtics, an Atlantic Division rival. Boston won 109-97. Like you said, Kyle, earlier, it looked like Toronto was going to kind of surmount Boston at some point in the third quarter. The whole game, they were kind of treading water, sticking around. It felt like something was about to happen, and then it kind of all just fell apart. Toronto just didn't have that extra push, and possibly because a lot of their players were injured. We didn't have Gary Trent Jr. tonight. We didn't have Kem Birch again. We didn't have OG again. Some may say that, or Nurse alluded to the fact that this might be a longer injury for OG, which is very concerning for my most improved player of the year bet. And we didn't have Goran Dragic, who flew back to Slovenia for a personal matter, which is interesting. We obviously hope everything is well with him and his family. And then we didn't have Chris Boucher, which I don't know what the report was. I don't know what you heard, Kyle, but that was kind of an interesting scratch for me as well.
Yeah, I think especially with like the forward depth so depleted tonight, it seems like if there was a Chris Boucher night, it would have been tonight. So it's odd that it really shows Nick Nurse's estimation of Boucher at this point is that he's not even really getting into the games where they have almost no options. I mean, Justin Champagny is playing minutes tonight. Although, I mean, Champagny's more of a wing than Chris is. Still, like they probably could have used Boucher tonight.
Do we know what the diagnosis was? I came in late from being away all weekend, so I didn't get the pregame stuff.
I'm reading DNP coach's decision. I actually was under the impression that he just was out of the rotation. I didn't know that.
That's ugly. That's drama.
That's serious drama. Yeah, I mean, I'm just checking now. It looks like he's active. He should have been good to go tonight.
Interesting.
That's a rough one for Chris. I don't know if he's not getting minutes in this game. I can't imagine what other situation he'd be getting minutes in. Maybe it's time to move on.
That's sending a real message. Maybe we'll get to that, but Kyle, share with me some general observations about tonight. What did you see? Some good things. Obviously, there were some bad things. What stood out to you?
Yeah, just another rough night overall. I think typically we've been pretty quick to bemoan the Raptors' injury woes, like blame everything on the injury woes. But I think tonight it's kind of I think that's valid tonight. The Raptors are missing like serious contributors. No OG, who, like you said, be out for a while. No Gary Trent. Their center minutes in general were pretty thin, although they're fortunate to not have to have played Robert Williams for the Celtics, who was out tonight, and he had a huge game against the Raptors last time, just absolutely abused them. So it's tough to say. I think in our title we've cited the refs as an issue here.
I may have done that.
Was it you? I don't. It's again. I always have a problem with this because like it was a 12-point game. Are the refs a 12-point swing? I mean, it was tough.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, the Raptors did have more points in the paint. I don't know about the shot chart. I haven't really looked at it. I imagine they were getting to the rim a little bit more than the Celtics were, and there was a huge disparity in free throws. I can appreciate that, but at a certain point, we kind of have to concede, like, Siakam 8 for 19 from the field, not a great night. Achiuwa non-existent in the fourth quarter, and barely existent for the majority of the game.
Yeah.
Barnes not really looking to attack the rim. He had a good shooting night from three, but didn't really seem to be attacking the rim early and had an uncharacteristically low energy night. It's odd. Maybe it's the first snowfall of the year. It could be his first snowfall of his life, honestly.
It's starting to become a little bit characteristic. I'm not gonna I think I'm not gonna place any real expectations on Barnes. He's a rookie. He's gonna have these kinds of ups and downs, but this is not the first time that he's kind of looked a little like lackluster, not lazy or anything, but not his typical fiery self. He did have 2 fouls early, I believe, and that that seems to mess with his psyche a little bit. But yeah, until the third quarter, and it seems to be also a trend that like once he sees a bucket drop, he kind of like picks up energy, which I don't know about you, but that's definitely for me. Like I get a layup or I hit a bucket, like suddenly my defense is like 10 times better. Um, and so that's probably a youthful thing that he kind of needs something extrinsically to get him going.
The other thing is like I don't know if he's ever lost this many games in his
Mm,
entire because he played at Montverde. They're not whatever, they're not going undefeated, but they're dominating everyone there. That's
yeah.
the premier prep school in the US. Florida State ran the ACC. They're an incredible team. I mean, they obviously lost in the tournament, but it's not like this. It might just be like fatigue, but it could also be like he's never really been faced with this sort of adversity, you know, in a larger sense, like not individual game adversity, but rather like whole season adversity, where he's playing for a team that like at the moment has a losing record. That who knows how he'll react.
Yeah, I think you're not wrong. I think it's a convergence of things too. He re-injured his thumb, and we saw after he hurt his thumb that he kind of like lost a little bit of his aggression. I think like he's still kind of figuring out where he fits in the system with Pascal being back, which we'll also get to. I know you commented in your preview, and there's some insightful thought on that, so we can talk about that. But I do think I think it's a lot of I think it's a lot of factors that are kind of playing into um, to his performances. I going back to the foul thing. I just want to say we had 19. We were 19 for 40 in the paint. They were 17 for 36. So we had 4 additional shots in the paint, and yet we had this massive free throw disparity. So I mean, yeah, it's not. I'm never gonna like toss it up to the refs, but like it was 31-16 in free throws. Um, that's a significant amount, and there are a lot of late calls too, like a lot of like last minute kind of stuff for Boston. It's just this ongoing trend, this ongoing paranoia of me being a Raptor fan, where I don't feel like we're getting fair treatment. That's all.
No, and I think that's part of the reputation you earn, like a Tatum and a Brown. It's like part of the reputation you earn as being a very good player for at least as long as they've been. I mean, it's not a long time, but it's a long time in the sense that like the Raptors haven't been good players for that long. So you get that kind of reputation. That's the NBA.
Yeah,
And it's frustrating, I guess, that Siakam doesn't have that reputation.
poor Freddie.
We're going to bring Zarar in here, though.
Yeah,
Aiden,
get
if
in
you
here,
want to.
Zarar. He was here and then he left.
Oh, he's gone. Okay, never mind. We're not going to bring Zarar in. Yeah, it's tough to say. Zarar will return. It's tough to say with the officiating because like it's almost if we want to buy into this, it seems like almost every single game is poorly officiated for the Raptors. And that's really like that's like a tough pill to swallow. So I'm not sure if I can get that far with it. Maybe I'm like a sheep and I'm not able to like haven't opened my third eye to the great NBA conspiracy
Yeah,
holding Toronto down.
you
But
don't know what the Illuminati's doing to fuck over the Toronto Raptors, man. You don't
yeah,
appreciate
exactly.
it.
But it seems like it's basically other teams have more established scorers who get more respect from the referees and are frankly like more polished offensive players. Like it's Tatum, hasn't been playing excellently this year, but like you can't deny the fact that he's really, really, really good at drawing fouls. He has that in his locker. He's that type of guy. He's learned from great players on Team USA. He learned from Kyrie in Boston. Like that's a skill in and of itself is drawing fouls when you might necessarily not deserve them.
Okay, but free throw leaders in attempts for Boston this game: Horford with 6, Josh
Yeah.
Richardson with 5, Grant Williams with 4, Cantor and Smart with 3, Langford even with 2. So it's not like it's not even like it's the superstars that are getting 12 or 14 free throw attempts, right? It's across the board, and some of that was offensive rebounding. We went into that zone in the I think the third quarter, and this is probably a good segue into our goddamn bench. But we went into a zone because we were kind of desperate to stifle what was going on, and that was when Cantor kind of started to eat us up down low. And part of what Precious is not a full-time center. Missing Chem just kills us. So our rebounding was going to be an issue, and I think that. But we actually led in rebounding, so I don't know what I'm going on about. But all I will say is that like I do think the refs were significantly they stunk more so tonight than usual.
Yeah, it's frustrating because Cantor's the type of guy that you should be able to play off the floor. Here's Zarar. Here he is, finally. He was in and now he's out. He's back in again.
Zarar, what's
I
up,
was
man?
just saying.
I'm like a Delano Banton in and out of the lineup. You never know when I'm going to play or when I'm going to sit.
I want to say above the Cantor thing, like that's kind of maybe Zarar, you can comment on this. Like, do we want to start reflecting and critiquing our design, our offensive strategy? I mean, like Cantor is the prototypical dude that you attack over and over and over again in a pick and roll, and like we didn't seem to do that at all tonight.
Well, I noticed that Flynn and Achiuwa were running a bit of a pick and roll game, except it's like in the quick reaction I wrote that Precious Achiuwa is a guy who does 60% of everything right. It's like that line from that movie, 60% of the right, 100%, whatever that line is. Can't remember right now. But like he'll do like 60% of the work and you're like, oh man, and he'll leave you like wanting for more, right? And almost in everything he does, he'll do like almost most of it, but then he won't do it. So to your example, when he ran the Malachi Flynn and him were running some like some pick and rolls, he gets the ball and he sees Cantor in front of him, and if he had the skill, that's a quick spin move for a lay-in, right? Except instead of spinning, he just kind of freezes. Or another example is like when he's defending somebody, like say it's somebody in an open court, he will come and he will stay in front of him, and you think he's in a good position to defend, but then he'll get sidestepped so easily because he thinks that his defensive job is over when he's established position, when the job is really just starting at that point. So I think they did try to get Cantor into some vulnerable positions, but honestly, they just don't have the personnel to do it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think another thing with Precious is, and you could hear Nurse at one point or somebody yelling at him to get over there, like, no, screen Freddie, like. And he missed a couple of rotations. Like he still is learning this system and learning how to be an NBA player. And like I think we forget that part of all of this too, is that he's still a novice when it comes to a lot of this stuff. And it really showed tonight. Like he really looked out of sorts. And I think that also, speaking to Scottie's gusto or lack thereof, like Precious is the same. He doesn't. The ball doesn't fall, or he makes a couple of mistakes, and he loses all of his vigor, and you could see that tonight.
I think also what's so frustrating about Precious is that like in recent memory, most younger Raptors players have had like an incredibly high level of like feel for the game, whatever that intangible quality you want to say. Like OG came to the league unpolished, but he seemed to always like be in the right spots. He was already like an excellent role player. Same with Siakam. Came to the league as like a very intelligent, high level role player. And Precious just kind of isn't it that he doesn't have a good feel for the game, and it's really foreign to Raptors fans, and it's kind of tough to deal with. It's very, very infuriating at times.
Yeah, and it's the in between. Like he's going away from just being the rim running energy guy because he's trying to develop as a player, but he's not at the level that like a sophisticated system like Toronto expects of him. And again, like that's kind of what we are maybe missing when we analyze the minutia of game to game, is we forget this big picture of like this is a larger process in place right now. And Precious was indicative of something else, which, I mean, I don't know if we want to go too far into like the bench. It was 32-13. Like Eric Kareen had a tweet that when VanVleet was off the floor for that part in the third quarter, they scored one bucket, and it was Flynn off that jump ball layup. So, you know, I mean, more than the refs, this really just came down to the fact that we didn't have the depth which we needed, and the bench was significantly hurting.
Yeah, and I think you're bang on that. Creativity is at a premium, even though on paper we have, you know, supposedly good playmakers in Siakam. Well, I guess just Siakam, and Barnes is still learning. I don't even consider Barnes a playmaker. I think sometimes we dump all these expectations on Scottie Barnes that are just unreasonable. Like right now he's having an amazing rookie season, but he's not really supposed to be having this sort of an amazing season, right? Like you can't be walking into the season expecting Barnes to produce this way. Barnes has produced well above and beyond what is expected of him. Yeah. Way above and beyond. And even with that, we are where we are. But I want to go back to your point about, like, you know, the Raptors not being able to produce without Fred on the court. That's very important, because Malachi Flynn, as much as he's been a little bit slightly better over the last couple of games, getting more playing time, he's another guy who he was not a drive threat. So teams can sort of play him very easily to be in a certain area of the court, usually beyond the 3-point line or the elbow area, because he hasn't shown really with any sort of consistency that he can get to the rim, that he can get by his defender. So he makes the defense's job fairly easy, which is one of the reasons why without Fred, we can't really seem to generate, because we're not able to stretch the defense enough to do something with our passing. We're a half-decent passing team, which is good, but in order to utilize your passing, you got to have the defense in some sort of a weak position or a stretched position. Yeah, and that's the part that we're not able to do. And that's the part where I'm sort of disappointed with Siakam tremendously, because in a game like this, you know, with OG out, with Gary Trent out, you sort of expect him to kind of, maybe it's unfair to kind of put the team on his back and kind of make this a statement game or something, but except we saw more or less average Pascal Siakam, maybe below average even.
Well, and Samson really harps on this a lot, and he just talks about how the Raptors don't really give Siakam any space to do anything, right? Like he goes, even in this game, you know, the Celtics are shading Siakam the whole time. He doesn't really have much room to operate in isolation. They just kind of give him the ball and expect him to go to work. And you know, like to your point, when the defense is set and they're just watching a guy go into ISO without any action off it, it's pretty hard. And you can see here, like Horford's all kind of is always aware of where Siakam is on the floor. So it's kind of hard to blame Pascal per se when the offense isn't really giving him the opportunity to score in any kind of you know, exploitative way, I guess.
But this is like the pick and roll was like a big revolution in basketball history for this reason. Like they, you know, it's a problem. Like I can blame him in the sense that most of his offensive game is basically like these high post, low post, high low type action, and it's like the Raptors pretty clearly need a guy who can operate out of the pick and roll. Especially when Trent is out and especially when VanVleet isn't on the floor, because that's how you bring that rim pressure. That's how you get the defense and scramble, more so than like drawing a double in the low post or maybe off of a wing cut, something like that. And Siakam isn't that guy. So maybe the offense needs to run through a guy who can actually run the high pick and roll with
that. Well, that's why early on I was asking, are we concerned about our offensive scheme, right? Like, you would think when our offense is so lackluster that we would be going to more simple things like pick and roll Scottie and Pascal, or, you know, even some design post plays to just get Pascal that isolation at the block or at the elbow where he can go to work with a little bit more action going on around him to give him that space to operate. We don't really seem to do that at all.
I was just going to say the Raptors in general seem to have this thing where like they don't have any A+ playmakers. They have a collection of guys who are like C+ to, B- playmakers who are like, oh, he makes that really good pass in transition, or that was an excellent pass out of a double team. But they don't have a guy who's like a creator. And that's where they miss Lowry this season. That's where they need Trent to develop into that. They need a bunch of guys who could either become that or they could bring in and do that, because right now there's no initiator really.
I'm not convinced that we have to take a mentality of like finding this like perfect configuration for Siakam to work. Like designing our offense so that Siakam is in this particular position where he can succeed. I think Samson's got a very good point that the Raptors don't necessarily haven't designed their sets exclusively for Siakam, or they're not catered enough for Siakam's strengths. But you got to call audible during the game at some point.
Sure.
You can't. Hell, man, Kyle, you are at the RR 3-on-3 today. I mean, how many times did you plan a play? I mean, you audible.
We went more than 3. You're asking the wrong guy.
You audible a lot of the game. You can
maybe too much.
What the defense is offering,
being honest.
And you sort of adapt to it. So I think if Siakam is feeling that like I'm not in the right position, well then reset and ask your teammates to put you in the right position. That's part of leadership. Yeah. Right. And to me, Siakam is one of the leaders on this team, and not just through his play, but I expect him to be vocal. And when things aren't going right, I expect him to like correct the configuration, not just wait for the configuration to come to him.
Yeah, but we do have a little bit of a double standard on Siakam though, because it's like on the one hand we have that perspective, which you're saying is like Siakam, go figure it out for us, and then on the other we're like Siakam, like swing the ball, move the ball, quit trying to like grind. Grind it in ISO. So I like it's kind of hard. So yeah, we kind of expect the world of Pascal, and maybe that's just part of it, is that he is our top 2 player. We should NBA. Expect the world of him.
He's the guy who's meant to be our best player. I think.
And if there's one thing, forget about everything else. So just leave everything alone, like the ISO, whatever. Maybe it's Nurse's fault. But he's got to improve his 3-point shooting. Like it's been better this year percentage wise, but an 0 for 4 game, especially on that fourth quarter 3, which was like wide open at the bottom left of the screen, he has to nail those. If nothing else, even if he had the game that he had today, I think if he goes 2 for 4 from 3 or 3 for 4 from 3, we're talking about him in a completely different tone.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that goes without saying for a couple of guys. If Svi hits one more of his 7 3-point attempts, or Yuta hits a couple of those open corner threes, like this game could be drastically different. I just want to go quickly back, Matt. No, never.
Matt,
get that garbage out of here.
Matt, what the hell is that, Matt?
I couldn't let that one go.
Is this Jalen Suggs? Was that Jalen Suggs? Like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
Was that Jalen Suggs on the chat?
And then I've been harping on this a lot. Like, I think that's another solution here, is that, like, again, about this offensive scheme, like, we're not really giving Scottie the opportunity to thrive. It's like, get him at the elbow, get him in the low post. Every time it happens, and a lot of the time he kind of like organically stumbles into it. The good things happen. Like I think last game or this game even, Barnes found Pascal from the low post to the weak side, and immediately the defense has to reconfigure, right? And that's all we're asking of, is we want the defense to look one way and we want them to have to look the other way. And that is the kind of like momentary lapse that allows gaps to develop and guys to penetrate, right? And I think Barnes is impossible to handle. Really, like if he's hitting that elbow jumper or that 3 with Horford guarding him, and then he goes down to the block and he's got Langford guarding him, like good fucking luck. But we don't seem to be giving him the opportunity to get into those positions. That's my
I
rant.
think that kind of goes back to what Zarar was saying earlier about Pascal's shooting. It's not just Pascal; it's a bunch of other people. It's like there seem to be a lot of guys in the rotation that need to be involved in primary actions because they're non-shooters and they're not effective as floor spacers, and so it sets up this dynamic in the team where they're not running the most efficient offensive sets strictly because they need to get certain guys involved because they're not spacers. It's the same thing the Lakers have with Westbrook to a certain degree. Like other teams have this problem too. That's part of basketball. But and I know Siakam shooting 39% in the year, but you take out that Sacramento game and it's a little bit less. And it's sort of unconvincing 39%.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
You guys talk about the refs?
A little bit. Go ahead.
Briefly. I shot it down.
Zarar, first, I heard you were Hubie Brown today at the 3-on-3.
Well, I was organizing. It was a fun tournament, man. The semifinals and finals were very competitive. The finals went to last shot. The losing team was kind of mad at me because I added some time back on the clock, so that ended in controversy a little bit. But congratulations to the Ride, who had a pretty insane comeback in the last minute. They were down like 5, which is a lot in the 3-on-3 game to win it. So I think I posted the highlight on Twitter with them winning the game. So it was a fun day, man. And I was more like just hanging out with Sam and enjoying the Mattamy Athletic Center. So yeah, It was fun.
Okay, now rant on the refs.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm always on the side of the refs did not cost us the game. The refs, I find, will adjust to you. And yes, you have to adjust to the refs as well, but they will always favor the team that is more aggressive and more disciplined and more consistent, I find. So I don't have any problems with the refereeing at all. And I don't think we really have the statistics to even say we have a problem. Yeah, the free throw disparity is a little much, but the foul disparity is what, 24-19, which is not that much considering Boston is generally the more aggressive team. So my ref take is I don't think I have a ref take. I think this is a non-issue.
I'm also not one to really go into the ref conspiracy stuff, and I don't actually think there is one, but I do think there was inconsistency, and that to me is the problem. We were talking about earlier, Zarar, like we had 40 attempts in the paint, they had 36, and yet there's this bit, and some of that's like offensive rebounds, whatever, or fast breaks, but we're on par with them. It's not like we're less aggressive. And so like a 15 free throw discrepancy is a pretty wide margin, and it was really bad early on. They made up for it a little bit more. So I don't know. I just like it just sucks when it's that much of a difference.
I think what we're both saying is that like we're not necessarily against you, but like 15 free throw discrepancy, 12-point game. They're shooting whatever from the free throw. Like it doesn't even make up those points. There are clearly other issues, more pressing issues about the road.
Of course. But I'm a fan, and I reserve the right to criticize refs. What did you guys think about Bonga tonight?
A lot of towel waving, good towel waving.
He had 11 minutes.
His line reminded me of that, like, one day, like after a loss to, I don't know who it was, like Sam Mitchell was asked post game, like, how things went. And he literally like grabbed like the box score that was printed. And he goes, well, we got guys out here producing 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So that's what I think of Bonga.
I'm actually pretty high on Bonga. But yeah, it was not a great Bonga night, we'll say.
He had one good take that just didn't fall. He played okay defensively. Like I could see him in the rotation. I actually could see him in the rotation more than Champagny, just because I think he can create, at least in transition. Like he can ball handle. I don't know if you saw him in the 905 or not, but he's pretty all over the place when he's confident and against lesser talent. But I think, especially right now when we're missing all these dudes.
He also has a more promising athletic profile than Champagny does. Like he's longer. he should, in theory, be a more valuable piece based on athletics alone. And they're not neither of them are exactly shooting the lights out. I mean, Bonga's not shooting anything.
You want to get this question? Who wants to get this question?
No, you go ahead.
Well, I'll get Boucher, and somebody else get Banton. How's
I'll
that?
Get Banton.
You get Banton, I'll get Boucher. Well, Boucher, dog, meat house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Boucher bad. Quick answer. I think Banton. Without Trent tonight, they need more Malachi to get a little more shooting on the floor to make up for lack of Trent's shooting. And I mean, even by extension, like more than just Trent, they need more Malachi to make up for OG's. No more OG's shooting. So I think that's part of the reason. And I don't know if this is a great Banton game. He doesn't exactly like. He really preys on like smaller guards that he can really abuse in the pick and roll. And like the Celtics guards are generally pretty good pick and roll defenders. Like I don't want to see Banton on smart pick and rolls as a offensive possession for the Raptors. Yeah,
I mean the quick answer is Fee like stretches the floor more than Banton ever will, and defensively we played a pretty good game, and I think that's another thing that Banton can contribute to quite quickly. And we didn't really need that, at least in the first half. But I am surprised that he only got 2 minutes, especially on a shortened bench.
So here's my question. So in a game like this, do you kind of force the issue and you play Banton so you can up the pace? Like, would that be a strategy that you can adopt, considering that you will struggle to score against the Celtics in the half court? Because even with the players missing, they generally have a good defensive mentality. Like, would that be? Is that a bad? I'm genuinely asking the question. Would you play him just to change it up and force the Celtics to sort of change their approach, or quicken the pace of the game up a little bit?
I would, but Nurse doesn't seem to be consistently playing Banton at all, right? Like he comes in the second quarter or late in the first, and every single time he gets a layup and he does something just to like catalyze the team. And then in the third quarter, he doesn't get any minutes. Like that's kind of almost been like a consistent theme. And so, I mean, I personally would do that. I love that kind of energy. We know what we're going to get from Malachi, especially pretty quickly. I don't know why Banton's not in there just to change things up. Especially when Svi's playing 38 minutes and having troubles at times, like I think there's room for Banton to at least try and prove himself.
But to be fair, I'm not necessarily against what you guys are saying, but to be fair, we can't be out here saying like Siakam has no room to operate, the offense has no room to operate, but we need Banton in the game over a shooter because he ups the pace. Sure. Like there are problems that Banton doesn't exactly solve. In fact, he probably makes them worse.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Zarar, do you want to answer a football question quickly?
Football question quickly. Football question. What's the football question? So I don't have this in front of me. Zarar, do you think we will beat Man United next game? Yes, I believe so. I think I'm confident. I don't know if it's at Old Trafford or Arsenal. Let me check really quickly. That just turned into a. It's at Old Trafford. But I still feel like we're playing well. This is an Arsenal team which has more of a backbone and a spine than in years past. And I'm more confident about this one than I have been in a lot of games in the past.
Great, and then that's our segment on football, the European kind. This is a good segue to our ad read. Our sponsor, Can-Am, is a personal tax firm that does it's full service, does small business accounting. It'll help you out with all your taxing needs. It's coming up. It comes up faster than you think. Next thing you know, everything's due all at once and it's a shit show. So Can-Am's ready for you to help, ready to help you right away. There's a lot of savings out there to be had. So check out their Google reviews, and you can visit them at www.canamtax.com. As is tradition, we have a Can-Am Tax Player of the Game. We don't really know what the criteria is yet for being the Can-Am Tax Player of the Game. So you can make it a negative thing as taxes suck all around, or you can make it a positive thing because Can-Am Tax is going to save you money on your income tax returns. Zarar, would you do us the honors?
I have to go with Scottie Barnes because I think he is probably the Raptor that I am enjoying the most this season, and this game was no exception. I thought his first of all, he seems to have a complete green light from his teammates, his coaches to shoot the ball. The only yellow light is in his head, and I think he's starting to shed that. As you saw in this game, he took that three. I don't know if you have a highlight where like he was being crowded like fairly deep
with Jalen. With Jalen
on the wing, and he kind of like didn't want to take that shot, but took it anyways and nailed it. So
yeah.
I think if you look at the season the way I am, I look at the season as a development year. Here, I think this is the shot right here. Or this is the one. Yeah, this is the one, right?
He
so they're daring him
right
to shoot, and he's like, "Here you go, man. I'll make it." So to me, this is progress. So he's my tax man of the night.
I think like Scottie Barnes is a terrific passer, and the fact that he's averaging like 2 to 3 assists a game is really just not enough. Like there are no bounds with Scottie. Like there truly isn't, and I want to see those reps, especially like you were saying with like Banton tonight. Like these should be the games where we really try and test him to his limits and see what he's capable of. And every time we test it, he steps up more or less. So I would love to just see more and more and more Scottie, because you're right, he's just so fun to watch.
Yeah, I think the lack of assists speaks to the lack of opportunity, though. I mean, like he's racking up the points. He's not a primary facilitator yet, and I think we maybe ought to get into that a little bit. We got producer Chris in the chat talking about Fred here, but like let's wrap it up on Scottie Zarar.
Well, let me wrap it up on Scottie, because I want to echo a point that Alvin Williams, who I know Adon is not a big fan of.
He's been improving.
He's getting better.
He's the most improved broadcaster this year.
He sounds like me trying to do an ad read, just fumbling everywhere.
And the point that Alvin made about Scottie was a comparison to Vince Carter, because when he said that when Vince came into the league, it was just about here's this like freak athlete, and nobody in the NBA knew the skills that Vince possessed. Everybody knew he could jump high and like throw down, but nobody knew about the jump shot, the spin, every single in his arsenal. And Scottie is the same thing, because when he came in, I don't think anybody expected him to be so skillful. And I thought that was a pretty good point that Alvin made. And I agree with a lot of the commenters here that I think if we are trying to kind of solve how to be more efficient in the half court, Scottie is an untapped well right now. And given that this is a development year, we need a lot more of those high elbow or post up situations where he can kind of like grab the ball and like navigate and even look 100%. Over his shoulder and find guys. We need more of that.
Yeah, they've gone away kind of from the dribble handoffs a little bit. The him and pick and roll is deadly. Him at the elbow with high low with Siakam has worked. I'd be interested. This would be a good article for the Raptors Republic to publish, but like finding a player type that's like him and seeing how other teams involve them into offenses to get them going. Because one-on-one with dribbling the ball, he's not as effective. He's not as effective on the jab, even though it worked with Jalen. Like it's about getting him a little bit downhill initially to start doing things. So I'd be interested to see what we could do to make that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the problem is, in part, the spacing is the same issues that Ciacom runs into, but the other part being that there are 5 guys who think they deserve shots over Scottie, and are more established guys in the locker room, in the city, etc., paid more money. So, and that's kind of a bad place to be in when the main obstacle to your star player's development is other guys in the locker room rather than like an actual.
Is that true though? But who's asking for shots though?
Malachi.
Malachi.
Boucher, Precious.
Maybe his dad is.
Yeah.
I think OG, I think Gary, I think Fred and Siakam all would be a little bit irked if they were to be behind Scottie in the creation hierarchy. And I think rightfully so. They're established guys. That's how the league works. But
your team's under 500. I don't know that you get that say. Although we
should get them in here and let them know.
Yeah. Well, they're streaming this in the locker room. There's no question.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah. Chris really wants us to talk about Freddie.
There's
He
nothing
was-
to say. He's good at basketball. This is not a notable thing anymore. He's a very good basketball player.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, he's just like that. That pull-up three has become a consistent thing. It's probably the biggest rainbow in the league. I don't know that there's a higher arc shooter than Fred. It's insane. His on-ball defense is like crazy. He like picked Jaylen Brown like it was no problem. Forced Marcus Smart out of bounds. Like he's everything you want. I mean, it's arguable that we don't want him on ball as much as he's been playing. And I think that's one of the problems in the flow of our offense is he takes the ball and he kind of tries to figure out what to do, and it just kills our half-court game. And so like having him off ball a little bit more, which is why I want to see Scottie in the post and stuff, I think would open up Fred's game a little bit more. But I mean, yeah, there's nothing to say. It was like a wonderful game from him.
A wonderful first half for sure. I think he had 22 in the first half. The second half, I don't think he did much offensively.
Yeah.
But that also has to do with the Celtics basically pushing him out a little further. They don't let him dribble the ball up the court, and they press him a little higher. Maybe get the ball out of his hands sooner, or don't give him that space that he likes in that 23-foot range area. Because Freddie has sort of figured out that if he goes too into the paint, there's congestion there, and he's upped his range so that he's more comfortable shooting from distance. But the Celtics can counter that by putting some more length on him, and they did that in the second half, which made life a little bit more difficult for him.
You're right. He was 3 for 8 in the second half.
Yeah, but still overall, so that was my grade for Fred. Yeah, that's exactly what I said. And and we talked about him earlier, where he really is the guy on the court who needs to be there for our offense to function at all. And when he's not there, we struggle because it's down to Malachi Flynn.
Yeah, it's a tough position for the Raptors because it's like you want him to be a floor spacer, you want him to be the guy in the corner in the high pick and roll, you want him to be the guy like sort of orbiting to the wing when there's a low post opportunity, and yet they can't get anything going without him on the ball. So it's a little tough. It's a bit of a conundrum at the moment.
It is a conundrum.
Also, 40 minutes again tonight. I get it. They need him out there, but like this guy. I mean, it's not 1965. Like you can't play 40 minutes a night, 40 plus minutes a night, like in
Chuck Taylor's.
Athlete.
This sort of looks like a poorly constructed roster, guys.
And how would you suggest to resolve that?
You can't say that about Masai, please. He knows everything. They've never been wrong. You know this. Don't think about Bruno Caboclo or anything like that.
I trust Masai and all that, but I just think we need a third center because we look at us. Look at us. We have Precious where we're asking Precious to rebound, run pick and rolls, run pick and pops, defend. It's not possible. It's just not possible. We cannot just fill the gap of a center by having a bunch of wings play helter-skelter basketball in bits and pieces and try to clog basically a leak in the tank. Like we need a center, and the bigger the better at this point, because I think we need some size in there. So I know it's a development year, but you want to be developing in a more realistic framework than this. This is not realistic development. This is like we don't have a center. Like this is basketball. You need a center, man.
Yeah, if you're like teaching people to drive, you want to give them a car that works and that they can actually that turns and has turn signals and brake lights and stuff like that. You don't want to teach people to drive on a car that's about to break.
I do think though that we haven't been healthy yet. Like we haven't had our actual roster all together, playing a couple of games together and figuring it out. That's Josh on Boucher.
Do we believe that? I just got to ask. Do we believe
they're shopping him? There's no question.
I mean, do we believe that when he gets his chance, he's going to be more consistent and that he'll handle it like a pro?
Yeah, he definitely has. And as soon as he gets the ball, he's a quick trigger from the top of the three.
I honestly think he will enjoy his time in Sacramento.
I heard at least the weather's good.
But yeah, I mean, we don't have a center. I appreciate that, but I do think when you have guys like Yuta coming in off the bench in the right order, like our defense will get tighter, and like we will be less porous on the perimeter and all of those things. And I want to see it. I'm not saying it will succeed, but I want to see it in its full design to see if we can actually make it work. So before we trade for, I don't know, Alex Len again or whatever you want.
Alex Len sounds good right about now.
Yeah, exactly. I think we haven't been fully healthy, but there was a good stretch of games in which we were nearly fully healthy with the exception of Yuta, or nearly fully healthy with the exception of like, some bench guy type
Well,
thing.
Kem's knee was giving him trouble, and Yuta wasn't there, and then and so like, and those
they refused to play Kem serious minutes anyway. Kem was still like, not because of an injury, but just because of the rotations, wasn't playing the amount of minutes that he probably should have anyway.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's an excuse. I'm just saying that I want to, like, they clearly have a vision, right? Like it's not a lack of foresight that they didn't choose to get a 7-footer. They have a vision. The health is an excuse in the sense that they haven't seen that vision at its fullest. And like, I feel like you need to see it eventually before you start making drastic decisions, as in trading, pieces or whatever else. I do think Boucher is on his way out, and I'm okay if we pick up a young center like Moses Brown or whoever else in the process. Like, I'm not against that. I'm just saying, like, the core, I want to see that in its full construct first.
It's ironic that like both JV and Pirtle are like perfect fits for this team in their own specific ways.
Pirtle especially.
Yeah, I would take Jakob Pirtle in a heartbeat. There's Alexander William. I would take Jakob Pirtle back in a heartbeat, and then they won't get rid of him for sure because he's a very good player.
Yeah. Did you guys talk Yuta?
No, we didn't.
Briefly. Plus 15, inexplicably plus 15 in 14 minutes.
Shocking.
Despite being 1
I think
for
he
6.
benefited from Fred's threes there.
Yeah, he was on the floor during a run. But, right. I mean, let's give him credit. He was on the floor during a run.
That's actually, Chris, if we can play that possession where Marcus Smart misses the 3 in the corner. And that's all about Yuta, which is that this is kind of what I'm talking about with no center. Is this? No. Maybe I have the wrong play. Anyway, there's a play where he basically is at the back line and stops the drive and then is able to close out. Oh, yeah, this is it. So he stops Jalen, and then he's recovering immediately for the closeout. Like, that's what we haven't had with Yuta, and we haven't had him with our bench players. And I think, like, that kind of, like, system defense that Yuta fits perfectly, as does the majority of our main players. Like, when that's running at a high level, I think we are a very good defensive team. And we played great defense up until the fourth quarter when we kind of just fell apart, right? But we held Tatum to, like, a horrible night. So we are capable of it.
Same comment as Siakam with Utah. I think defensively, I don't think you're going to find too many people who will disagree that he's not a good defensive player. He's got smarts for the game, good positioning. As you said, like can defend multiple attacks on one possession. He's got to nail his threes.
Yeah.
He's got to nail his threes. Just like Siakam, like we have to get better at hitting wide open corner shots.
Yeah. I'm just saying that the no center thing, and it will plague us. There's no question. But I think like we can get away with it when you have a guy like Yuta that's making perfect rotations and blocking guys at the rim even. But, like, I think rebounding will hurt us, I just think it's plausible. We should try it.
You can you can definitely get away with it in spurts, in stretches. But as an overall, if you're composing your roster, you still need a third center. And I don't believe that what you're describing here is something that can sustain us over a season.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen. I think like that's the risk they're taking. That's the innovation they're pushing. And with all innovation, there's failure and iteration. So we'll see. But it's exciting I just want to see it is all. I just want to see it in its fullest. That's what I'm saying. Maybe we'll do one more film. The Pascal Lopez, Chris. That'd be a good one. Oh yeah,
this
that
was a
was
great pass.
That was a
This was
good
great
cut.
pass.
Yeah.
So there
That's a
was
good
that.
cut and a good pass.
There was that one, and then there was the Pascal in the low post to Scottie for the three. So like, Kyle, you addressed it in your preview, and there's been a little bit of talk about like, can Pascal and Barnes play together? And the answer is, of course they can. Like, there's so much space on the floor to have these guys operating low post, high post, inverse from the perimeter to the post, like weak side. If they're both hitting their threes at some consistent rate, they can play very well together.
Yeah, I mean, as I was looking into it for this morning's preview, it's out of the 16 lineups that have played over 200 minutes, two-person combinations, Barnes and Siakam are 14th, or at least prior to tonight. I imagine that would have changed, but who knows? I haven't looked at that yet. And so, like, the evidence is kind of against them being a good fit at the moment. But you're right. In theory, it makes perfect sense. These guys are complementary players. They're willing passers. They're fine shooters, fine to good shooters, depending on the night. So it should be a functioning relationship. And it was encouraging tonight to see Siakam really go to Scottie and set him up and like make at a point of emphasis to get him the ball in transition as a trailer. And even like it felt, and it's weird always to play like the body language doctor, but it felt like this was the first night where like Siakam was really coming up to pass or to Scottie and like having a conversation with him, really engaging with him after they would have like a moment, talk about like, oh, I really want you here, I really want you there type thing. And that's encouraging because I think Scottie can learn a lot from Pascal, who's an excellent player. And if there's a guy Scottie should be spending all of his time around and learning everything from, it's Pascal.
Yeah,
and it was nice to see. I think you're right, Kyle. It was nice to see Pascal and Scottie connect more. And this is a good example. I think this can work in reverse as well. That's what's so nice about it, is that it's a symbiotic two-way relationship, right? It doesn't have to be like one depending on the other. They can definitely like these two plays that we're looking at here are perfect examples, because Siakam is excellent at moving without the ball when he wants to, and Scottie is great at finding people, so it should naturally work. And also Siakam is pretty good at playmaking when he wants to, and Scottie hasn't shown great off the ball movement so far in his career, but I think that's something that can develop. So definitely some encouraging signs watching these two play. I'd also say, a lot of people want Scottie to be, and I agree with this, on the block and run the offense through him. I wonder why we don't adopt a similar approach with Siakam. Why don't we see Siakam in those Scottie positions where he's able to kind of survey what the defense is doing and pick out passes? Siakam is always, I feel like he's always in more of a face-up situation where he has to create on his own. We kind of talked about this earlier, but is there a reason why he's not in those Scottie positions?
To me, and I think Adon will probably agree with me here, I don't think Siakam's the level of passer that is required to be like a high post split, run the offense out of. Like, he seems to have a tremendous amount of gravity and can pass out of doubles, can pass out of drives and stuff, but he's a little more read and react than he is like an architect. In that sense. That's my impression of it.
That's an excellent description. Yeah, I would say something similar. I think it's coming along. Like, his passing has evolved. Like, even this play, but it is a read and react. But like, maybe a year ago, he wouldn't have made that pass. I don't know, or he wouldn't have executed it properly. So I think he is coming along. But yeah, he's not the playmaking hub that you would want, or that I think Barnes can be. And even in this play, the other thing is that they do pick and roll, even though it doesn't really like occur in the right way, and it's in a crowd, and they still make it work. So I do think these two can really play with each other, and have Fred as that third, weak side like threat off of a kick on those actions. So I don't know. I just feel like there's a lack of creativity offensively recently with Nurse. We're going to finish with a couple of questions from our audience that are listening. Give us some questions. If you want yours answered first, you can donate, or I don't know, pay some money or whatever, a couple $100, no big deal.
Super chats.
Are you guys not
super chats?
You guys
are like so not YouTubers.
I'm still on ICQ.
539-59863.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Chris. I think like we talk a lot about what's going to happen when OG comes back, and I think actually the answer is to bench Scottie and bring him on staggered with VanVleet and have him or somebody else like OG and have him run the point maybe with somebody else and have him run the bench mob unit. I want to see our new bench mob, and I think Barnes can be a big part of that.
I'm against that idea, but we'll
Tell me more, Kyle.
I think that Scottie is one of the 3 best players in this team already. I honestly do. I think that he's a better floor spacer than he's been given credit for thus far. I mean, everyone's in astonishment of his shooting, but no one really gives him credit as being like a guy who spaces a floor, which he does by his playmaking gravity and his shooting gravity. And he's a good defender. So I don't see that really as like a great option. I'd love to see Scottie and the bench lineups, but I want him closing games and I want him starting games.
I'm not saying not closing games. I'm just saying not starting. May I offer to you the name Manu Ginobili, who I think like kind of stylistically might be a little Barnesian, right? Like he's kind of his own whirling dervish playmaking dude, the 6th man for the Spurs, but closes games. Like it gave Ginobili room to do his own thing, and I think Barnes is his own ecosystem or will be in the near future. And so it makes sense for him to kind of fill that void because our bench is horrendous right now.
I think Ginobili works, but Fred VanVleet and Siakam are not Tony Parker and Tim Duncan. Okay, that's what I'll say.
Okay, fair enough.
I sense a bit of a contradiction in Kyle's take here, because on one end he's saying he doesn't want Scottie to go on the bench, and on the other you're saying that he has to compete for shot attempts with like Pascal and OG. Wouldn't he have to compete less if he's playing with like Bonga?
Of course, but I'm living in a fantasy land over here, and in my fantasy land, I'm having Scottie play with the starters and shoot more. I think if you're right, if we're in a situation where it's like by no means is Scottie allowed to run the offense with the starters, and that's just a non-starter, and they can't get past that, then I'm all for Scottie with the bench. But that kind of feels like I'm almost giving up. I don't like that. I feel like wrong inside of me.
All right, man. Let's knock these through. I see a bunch coming in.
Yeah, Chris, give us one more.
Yes, I'd be against that.
Yes, I would be against.
I would too. I think we see Pascal in a 2-dimensional light. If you haven't read Minute Basketball by Sampson and Louis Atzman, go have a read. Their most recent one was about why Pascal is such a contentious player, like love him, hate him, but also why he is so valuable and so great of a player. And it is small stuff that I'm not saying we are too dumb to see, but it is like there is a like another level of his basketball capabilities that makes him a very unique, valuable player. And arguably, he's not as most valuable in the light of other teams right now. So even if we were to trade him, I don't think now would be the time.
Yeah, I mean the answer, what especially made this a hard no is for depth.
Yeah,
like what do you mean? You're gonna trade him for like a, you're gonna trade like a, on a 45, 50-inch flat screen TV for like 4 LCD monitors,
Super Nintendos.
I mean, I don't know. No, I would not trade Pascal Siakam unless it's for like a player who is potentially better than him, not like chump change.
I don't not even better at this moment, but like I want the most valuable asset in the deal. Or it's a no for me. And
conversely, we actually have too many like Super Nintendos. We need to like turn those guys into a Plasma or whatever the hell, Xbox 5. I don't know, whatever's going on these days. But like, I think that's our problem right now is we have too many dudes who kind of do well and they kind of deserve playing time, but not too much playing time. And that's messing with our flow right now. So I would almost do the opposite.
Hey, here's one.
Interesting.
No, it's not hurting the bench. The bench, they're playing high minutes because the bench is not very good.
Yeah, the
Zarar
bench
just
is
wanted
putting
to light you up, Litmus. That's okay. One more, and then we'll
I
call
think.
it a night.
Sorry, Litmus. I just that's what I think.
Litmus also backs you up by asking about a center, but I don't want to end on that question because we kind of talked about it already. Chris, do you see one?
center.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Yeah.
No, I don't know about a 3-and-D guy. I think we got enough 3-and-D guys.
And
They're
we
just not
have
hitting
too
threes right
many.
now.
Yeah, the bench is all Nintendos.
I-
Okay, maybe this will require more thought. Why? I mean, yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I think there's been just a bunch of Boucher and Dragic stuff in general. I just want to say, first of all, like this Dragic's departure is not an indication that he's going to be traded. If anything,
Yeah.
like it's an indication that he's not being traded. There's no reason to even go through the difficulty of having an announcement like this just to ship him off next week.
Yeah, Raptors wouldn't do
sense.
that. Like, look what they're doing to Boucher. They don't need to like make up an excuse.
Yeah, so Dragic, this is like more of a sign that Dragic there has no suitors than it is a sign that he is being traded. It's just a veteran guard. He's a veteran guard who can run second units, and Boucher is in theory a good shooter and long.
I think Dragic's problem is he's $20 million, and Raptors don't want to take on long-term large money. I think I said this last wrap up a couple of games ago. Like Boucher is very valuable to different teams. I know in theory. The thing is with the Raptors is they haven't, I think Boucher's mind is the Raptors haven't proven that he doesn't deserve the minutes or the volume of shots. And if he goes to a contending team where the hierarchy is very clearly in place, like a Golden State, like a Lakers, like a Clippers, like I think there's a lot of teams where it'd be like, yo, you just go block the ball and shoot if you're very open, and that's it. And I think he could play like valuable minutes for a playoff team in the right setting. What we're getting possibly back for that, I don't know. But
he also seems to be somebody who does not really seem to abide by the game plan set out for the coaches.
I know that's definitely
does feel
true.
That way.
How about Jalen Smith for Boucher?
I think Boucher for anybody would be something that.
Yeah, exactly. I would take a second round pick for Chris Boucher.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we'll
I'd take the 60th overall pick for Chris Boucher if it was offered. He's on an expiring deal, and he doesn't have much value whatsoever. And the Raptors, if anything, it saves the Raptors from having to let go a Canadian guy who won a championship with them, and that's an awkward situation to be in.
Okay, we're at a minute 2. Zarar's got to go. It's late out east. I got to go make dinner for the house. Another Raptors loss. It's too bad. Where are we at? They're playing. Anybody know? I don't have it with me right now.
Love the scad.
Shit. I should know this. They're playing Memphis. Revenge match. Do we know what Ja's injury is? Knee sprain?
Yeah, he's just sprained. So I assume he'll be out, but he's not like
they smashed the Kings tonight. So apparently, well, that's just the Kings. So Memphis is in town. OG is probably out. Ja's out. So if you had tickets to this game, I'm sorry, the star power is not going to be there.
You can see Dylan Brooks. He's from Mississauga. Come on.
True.
I'll take your tickets from the game if you're
and
dissuaded by the lack of star
another
power.
Canadian. Okay, thanks guys for joining us. Shout out to Chris, our producer. Kill it as always. You're very funny on the Raptors Republic tweets, and you're very funny on here too. So you're doing a great job. Everybody have a good Sunday night.
Night, guys.